The Galactic Council chambers had never witnessed such tension. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the center of the vast circular hall, surrounded by representatives from 47 different species. Their eyes, mandibles, and various sensory organs focused on her with a mixture of disgust and barely contained fury. The holographic displays around the chamber showed the devastating aftermath. Entire Zelkari colonies reduced to ash. The crystalline cities of the Thoraxians cracked beyond repair. The sacred groves of the Verdani withered to black stumps. All of it humanity's doing. 40 billion lives, hissed the serpentine delegate, its forked tongue tasting the air with contempt. 40 billion innocent beings, destroyed by your species' latest weapon. Sarah's hands trembled slightly as she gripped the podium. The weight of those numbers crushed down on her shoulders like a physical force. She had reviewed the reports dozens of times during the long journey to this moment. Each casualty list felt like a knife twisting in her chest. The quantum cascade bombs were never meant to, she began. Silence! Roared the Erskine representative, its massive form rising from its seat. Your excuses mean nothing. Your scientists knew the risks. Your military deployed them anyway. Your species has proven itself to be nothing more than rabid animals. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The ethereal delegate's translucent form flickered with agitation. The mechanical whirs from the synthoid section grew louder and more aggressive. Even the normally calm Aquarians were creating distressed harmonic frequencies. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment, fighting back tears. The truth was worse than they knew. The bombs hadn't been deployed by rogue elements, or through some tragic miscommunication. They had been authorized by Earth's highest military command as a preemptive strike against what they believed was an imminent invasion force. Intelligence reports had shown massive alien fleet movements near human space. Unknown energy signatures. Encrypted communications that Earth's best cryptographers couldn't decode. The military had concluded that humanity was about to be wiped out, so they struck first with their most powerful weapons. But they had been catastrophically wrong. The alien fleets had been evacuation ships. The encrypted communications were rescue coordinators trying to save civilian populations from a natural cosmic phenomenon, a wave of dark matter that was sweeping through that sector of space. The energy signatures belonged to massive shield generators designed to protect refugee ships, and humanity had destroyed them all. We demand immediate reparations, declared the Korthani trade minister, its crystalline voice cutting through the chamber's noise. Every human world must surrender 50% of its resources. Your military must be disbanded. Your species must be placed under permanent galactic supervision. Unquote. That's not enough, interjected the Zelkari military commander. Humanity must be relocated to a single system and confined there. They've proven they cannot be trusted with freedom. Sarah felt the walls closing in around her. These weren't unreasonable demands given the circumstances. 40 billion lives lost because of human paranoia and aggression. How could she possibly defend her species' actions? But as she looked around the chamber, she noticed something that gave her pause. The younger delegates, those who hadn't lived through the worst of galactic conflicts, were watching her with something other than pure hatred. There was curiosity there. Confusion. They seemed to be wondering why humanity's representative looked so genuinely devastated by her own species' actions. Most species, when caught in such circumstances, would deflect blame or make excuses. They would claim the attack was justified, or that the casualties were exaggerated. But Sarah's obvious anguish was something unexpected. I won't defend what we did, Sarah said finally, her voice barely above a whisper, but somehow carrying to every corner of the massive chamber. I can't defend it. There is no justification for the lives we've taken. The chamber fell silent. Even the background hum of translation matrices seemed to quiet. But I need you to understand something, she continued, her voice growing stronger. What I'm about to tell you isn't an excuse. It's an explanation. And then it's an apology the likes of which this galaxy has never seen. The Thoraxian delegate's gem-like eyes flickered. Sarah straightened her shoulders and took a deep breath. 3 months ago, Our deep space monitoring stations detected massive fleet movements in your territories, unknown energy signatures that matched nothing in our databases. Communications we couldn't decode. Despite our best efforts, she activated her personal data pad, projecting the intelligence reports for all to see. Our analysts concluded that an invasion force was assembling. Every piece of evidence suggested that humanity was about to face extinction. So you decided to commit genocide first. The Serpentine delegate spat. We panicked, Sarah said simply. We've only been part of the galactic community for 30 years. In our history, when faced with extinction, we've always fought back with everything we had. It's how we survived on our world. It's how we thought we had to survive. In space. She paused, letting that sink in. We were wrong. We didn't understand that those fleets were trying to save lives, not take them. We didn't know about the dark matter wave. We didn't know that you were heroes risking everything to evacuate civilian populations. The chamber remained silent. But Sarah could sense a shift in the atmosphere. The raw fury was still there, but something else was creeping in. Something that might have been the beginning of understanding. I'm not here to ask for forgiveness, Sarah continued. What we did is unforgivable. I'm not here to negotiate lighter punishments, though I suspect they'll be severe enough to end human civilization as we know it. She looked directly at each delegate as she spoke, making eye contact with dozens of different types of visual organs. I'm here to do something that might seem impossible after what we've done. I'm here to apologize. Not just on behalf of my government or my military, but on behalf of every human being who will live with this shame for the rest of our existence. The silence stretched on, heavy with the weight of 40 billion lost lives and one species' desperate attempt to find redemption in the face of the unforgivable. Sarah reached into her diplomatic pouch and withdrew a small device that immediately caused security systems throughout the chamber to activate. Energy barriers flickered to life, weapons were drawn, and several delegates began backing toward emergency exits. Wait, Sarah called out, holding the device high above her head. This isn't a weapon. It's a memory core containing something I need to show you. The Galactic Security Chief, a hulking Brutanian with cybernetic implants covering half his face, stepped forward. Any unregistered technology could be. It contains the personal messages of every human involved in the bombing, Sarah interrupted. Messages they recorded when they learned what they had actually done. The chamber's tension shifted from fear to confusion. The ethereal delegate's form solidified slightly as it leaned forward. Explain. Sarah activated the device, and suddenly the air filled with holographic figures. Hundreds of them. Humans in military uniforms, scientists in lab coats, government officials in formal attire. All of them looked broken. When our people learned the truth about what they had destroyed, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion, something unprecedented happened in human history. The first hologram activated. It showed a grizzled military commander with tears streaming down his face. My name is General Marcus Webb. I gave the authorization for the quantum cascade deployment. I believed I was saving humanity from extinction. Instead, I became responsible for the greatest act of genocide in galactic history. The general's voice cracked as he continued. I have 3 grandchildren. Before this, I was their hero. Now I have to live knowing that I'm the monster other species will use to frighten their young. I can never undo what I've done, but I want every being in this galaxy to know that I will spend every remaining day of my life trying to make amends. Another hologram flickered to life. A young scientist with shaking hands. Dr. Lisa Park, Quantum Physics Division. I designed the Cascade Matrix. I thought I was creating a defensive weapon to protect innocent lives. The mathematics were beautiful, elegant. I never imagined they would become instruments of such horror. One by one, hundreds of humans appeared. The bomber pilots who had carried out the missions. The intelligence analysts who had misinterpreted the data. The government officials who had approved the strikes. The technicians who had armed the weapons. Each one took responsibility. Each one apologized. Each one looked directly into the recording device, as if they could see through time and space to the families of those they had killed. "This is unprecedented," whispered the youngest Zelkari delegate. "In our history, when the guilty are caught, they make excuses or claim they were following orders. These humans are confessing freely," added a Thoraxian observer. "They're not trying to minimize their guilt or shift blame." But it was the final hologram that truly changed the atmosphere in the chamber. An elderly woman appeared, her white hair pulled back in a simple bun. She wore no uniform or official insignia, just a plain blue dress. "My name is Margaret Chen," she said. "I'm Sarah's grandmother. I'm 93 years old, and I've lived through more human conflicts than most. I want to speak to the families of those we killed." The chamber fell completely silent. Even the translation matrices seemed to hold their breath. "I know you must hate us," Margaret continued. "I know you must want revenge. But I need you to understand something about humans that maybe you don't know. We're not a naturally evil species, though I know our actions make that hard to believe." She paused, wiping away a tear. "We're afraid. We've always been afraid. On our world, nearly everything tried to kill us. The weather, the animals, diseases, even other humans. We learned to strike first, because waiting meant dying. But fear is not an excuse for what we did. Being afraid doesn't give us the right to murder your children, your parents, your loved ones. So I want to make you a promise on behalf of every human being." Margaret looked directly into the camera with eyes that held the weight of a lifetime. "We will remember them. Every single being we killed will be remembered. We're creating a memorial on Earth where every name will be carved in stone. We'll teach our children about them. We'll tell stories about their lives, not just their deaths. And more than that," she continued, "we'll change. This moment will become the turning point for humanity. The moment we stopped letting fear control us. The moment we started choosing love over violence, understanding over suspicion." The hologram flickered and faded, leaving the chamber in absolute silence. Sarah stepped forward. Every human on every world watched these recordings when they were made. There were no riots demanding justice for our actions. No protests claiming we were right to defend ourselves. Instead, there were vigils. 40 billion candles lit in remembrance of those we killed. She activated another device, showing images of Earth's cities, filled with humans holding candles, standing in complete silence. Massive crowds united in grief and shame. "Our children are learning your languages so they can properly pronounce the names of those we killed," Sarah continued. "Our artists are creating works to honor the lives lost. Our scientists are dedicating their research to healing the damage we've done." The Aquarian delegate's harmonic frequency shifted to something almost like wonder. "Your species is experiencing collective shame?" "More than that," Sarah replied. "We're experiencing collective responsibility. Every human child born from this day forward will grow up knowing what we did here. They'll carry the weight of this tragedy and the determination never to repeat it." She looked around the chamber at faces that no longer showed pure hatred, but something more complex. "I said I came here to apologize, and I have. But I also came here to make an offer." The Korthani trade minister's crystalline form chimed softly. "What kind of offer?" "Complete reparations, but not the kind you might expect," Sarah said. "Yes, we'll provide resources and labor to rebuild what we destroyed. Yes, we'll submit to galactic oversight of our military. But more importantly, we'll give you something no species has ever offered before." "Which is?" Sarah's voice grew stronger, filled with a conviction that surprised even her. "We'll teach you everything we've learned about survival through 10,000 years of living on a death world. We'll share our defensive technologies, our tactical knowledge, our ability to endure and overcome." "But why would you do this?" asked the ethereal delegate. "Because," Sarah said simply, The same dark matter wave that you were fleeing from is still coming. It's moving slower than we originally calculated, but it's going to reach the core worlds in 18 months. And when it does, you're going to need every advantage you can get. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The dark matter wave wasn't supposed to pose a threat to the galaxy's center for decades. How do you know this? Demanded the Brutanian security chief. Sarah smiled sadly. Because while you've been preparing for this trial, our scientists have been working around the clock to understand the phenomenon that started this whole tragedy. We may be monsters, but we're monsters who want to help you survive what's coming. Scientists from across the galaxy linked into the chamber's communication arrays, their data streams creating a constant flow of information that painted an increasingly dire picture. Sarah stood to the side, no longer the center of attention but still under careful watch. The focus had shifted from humanity's crimes to the approaching catastrophe that threatened every inhabited world in the galaxy's core. Dr. Yuki Tanaka materialized via hologram from Earth's Deep Space Research Center. Her exhausted face showed the strain of weeks without proper sleep. The dark matter wave has been accelerating as it consumes stellar matter. Our latest calculations show it will reach the galactic core in 14 months, not the 47 years previously estimated. The Thoraxian chief scientist's crystalline form crackled with distress patterns. This is impossible. Our models showed we had generations to prepare. Your models were based on the wave maintaining constant velocity, Doctor, Tanaka replied. But we've discovered it's not just moving through space. It's feeding on the quantum foam beneath reality itself. Each star system it devours increases its speed exponentially. The Zelkari military commander's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. How many worlds are in the projected path? 47,000 inhabited systems, came the reply. Approximately 2 trillion beings. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. Even the chamber's environmental systems seemed to struggle with the weight of it. The ethereal delegate's form began to flicker erratically. What can be done? Our evacuation fleets were destroyed in the bombing. It would take decades to build new ones. That's where our offer becomes relevant, Sarah said, stepping forward carefully. Several security officers tensed, but she kept her hands visible and moved slowly. Humanity has something you need. What could you possibly offer that would matter in the face of this? The serpentine delegate hissed. Desperation, Sarah replied simply. For 10,000 years, my species has faced extinction events. Ice ages, volcanic winters, plague, war, asteroid impacts, climate change. We've gotten very good at impossible escapes. She activated her datapad, projecting new information. The evacuation fleets that were destroyed, they were designed for comfort and long-term habitation. Beautiful ships, but inefficient for mass evacuation. The projections showed human ship designs that looked brutal by comparison. Stark, angular vessels with no aesthetic considerations whatsoever. These are what we call arc ships. They're not comfortable, but they can carry 10 times as many beings as your evacuation vessels. The Aquarian delegate's harmonic frequencies shifted to confusion. How is this possible? We stack people like cargo, Doctor, Tanaka explained via hologram. Stasis pods arranged in honeycomb configurations. No privacy, no comfort, barely enough life support to keep everyone alive. But it works. This is barbaric, protested the Korthani trade minister. Yes, it is, Sarah agreed. But it's also effective. We can evacuate 2 trillion beings if we start immediately, and if every species contributes their industrial capacity to building these ships. The chamber erupted in arguments. The civilized species found humanity's evacuation methods appalling. The idea of packing sentient beings into stasis pods like freight went against everything they believed about dignity and quality of life. But the numbers were undeniable. The Brutanian security chief raised his massive hand, and the chamber gradually quieted. Assuming we accepted this barbaric plan, what would prevent humanity from using these ships to spread your species throughout the galaxy? Sarah had been expecting this question. Because we're not going. The silence that followed was absolute. Explain, demanded the Zelkari military commander. Someone has to stay behind to maintain the evacuation, Sarah said. The ARC ships require constant monitoring and course corrections. The factory stations need crews to keep building vessels until the last possible moment. And when the wave arrives, someone needs to be here to make sure the last ships escape successfully. You're talking about suicide, the youngest Thoraxian delegate said, its crystalline voice cracking with emotion. We're talking about responsibility, Sarah corrected. 40 billion beings died because of our actions. If we can save 2 trillion through our sacrifice, it's the least we can do. The ethereal delegate's form solidified completely, something that rarely happened outside of extreme emotional states. This is unprecedented. No species has ever offered to sacrifice itself for others. We're not a normal species, Sarah replied. We're the species that bombed evacuation fleets because we were afraid. We're also the species that will choose extinction to save those we wronged. A new hologram appeared in the chamber, an elderly human male with tired eyes but a determined expression. Admiral James Park. Human Fleet Operations. We've run the numbers multiple times. If we dedicate our entire industrial capacity to ARC ship production and use our population as volunteers for maintenance crews, we can save 97% of those in the wave's path. At the cost of human extinction, added the Serpentine delegate. Yes, Admiral Park confirmed. But extinction with purpose is preferable to extinction from cosmic accident. This way, our species' last act will be one of redemption rather than destruction. Over the following hours, the plan took shape. Human industrial worlds would be converted into massive shipyards. Every human with technical skills would work around the clock to produce ARC ships. Earth's population would volunteer for the dangerous job of shepherding the evacuation, knowing they would never reach safety themselves. But something unexpected happened as the details emerged. The younger delegates began speaking up with a different perspective. This is wrong, said the young Zelkari delegate, its mandibles set in determination. 40 billion lives were lost. Yes, but sacrificing an entire species for redemption goes beyond justice into madness. We agree, chimed the Thoraxian youth representative. Humanity's crime was allowing fear to overcome judgment. The answer isn't to make fear irrelevant through death, but to learn to live with courage. Take the Tensevari 5. Take the Tensevari 5. Take the Tensevari 5. The elderly delegates watched in surprise as their younger colleagues began proposing modifications to the plan. Mixed crews for the maintenance stations. Shared sacrifice rather than total human martyrdom. A future where humanity would live with the weight of its crimes, but also with the chance for genuine redemption through centuries of service. You would trust us after what we've done? Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. We would trust you because of how you've responded to what you've done, replied the young ethereal delegate. Fear made you monsters, but guilt has made you heroes. The final vote came after 36 hours of continuous discussion. The evacuation plan was approved unanimously, but with a crucial modification. Humanity would not be allowed to commit species suicide. Instead, they would be bound by galactic law to survive and serve as guardians against their own darker impulses. As Sarah prepared to return to Earth with news of the galaxy's decision, the eldest Zelkari delegate approached her. Your grandmother's message moved us deeply. But she was wrong about one thing. What was that? Sarah asked. She said you would remember our dead. But we will remember your living. The humans who chose to save us all, rather than save themselves. That story will be told for 10,000 years. Sarah smiled through her tears. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's how a species learns to live with the unforgivable, by spending the rest of existence proving it was an aberration, not their true nature. The chamber doors opened, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond. Somewhere out there, a wave of destruction was approaching. But between it and 2 trillion innocent lives stood humanity, former monsters turned guardians, carrying both the weight of their crimes and the determination never to repeat them. The galaxy had learned something profound about the strange, dangerous, and ultimately redeemable species called humanity. And humanity had learned something equally important about the possibility of finding forgiveness, not through words, but through a lifetime of actions that proved those words were true.